Preston. Welcome to Multispective. I would love to just hear a little bit about sort of where it all begins for you, your background, where you're from, your childhood.
All right, so I'm in a pretty small town in Pennsylvania called Conneaut Lake. It is quite an unfortunate place to be living. Like, I mean, it's nice, it's safe, but like, just the people around here aren't the best to be around. You know what I mean? Not too kind. So, yeah, I'm
Why
out here.
So? In what way?
To be completely honest, most of them are pretty bigoted, like racist, homophobic, just, and it's like in a big cluster of people. They're all pretty much, I'm not trying to be, what's the word, biased, I guess, against people here. But yeah, a lot of the people I met and tried to make connections with ended up being not the greatest people to be around, so.
Is it a very white dominant area
Yes.
that you're in?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you a minority? Where are you from originally?
I'm not a minority, I'm from here, but like I'm gay myself, so I know that I just wouldn't want anybody to be, you know,
Right.
upset by other people's actions or words, and
Right.
not a big fan of that, so.
Have you found yourself being marginalized or being treated a certain way?
Oh, yeah, most definitely, yeah. I was more closeted growing up. Like, I didn't really know how to come out to friends or family. It was a very, like, terrifying thing. And my family not knowing that I was gay, I don't know. Like, they didn't make me feel like it was really safe to come out. I came out to my mom, my dad, my grandma. That was, like, 2 years ago. And, I mean, the response was better than expected because of, like, stuff I've heard them say in the past before I came out. Like, for an example, we'd be watching, like, a football game and a RuPaul drag race commercial would come up, and it would not be a good situation for them. I feel like they were offended by seeing that on the TV. They would say it would just be like, turn this shit off, or, you know, stuff in that context. It made me feel not too safe to be myself, express myself.
So how did you sort of build up that courage to tell them finally?
I honestly think the shrooms did that for me. Like, the fear of feeling what I felt was scarier than the thought of being gay to me after that, I guess.
You mentioned that you were closeted for a while and perhaps went through that phase of like, okay, now I'm having to come to terms with this sort of like reality. How was that for you? Like, at what point was it like an overnight thing where you're like, all right, I accept it. This is where I stand. This is who I am. Or was it a slow progress of like trying to fight it for a while with yourself?
It was a pretty slow process. Like, there would be times where I've had people question if I was gay or not, and I'd just be like, no, I mean, I just can't say it, you know what I mean? I can't let these people know because I don't know what their perception of me will be after this. Not that it matters anymore to me. I think the turning point was whenever I wanted to get into relationships with other men, and I didn't want to hide it from my mom, and I didn't want it to be like a big deal, her finding out. I felt like I needed to tell her, just so I was more comfortable with myself and comfortable like sharing that side of myself with somebody I'm close with. So yeah.
How did they take it at the end?
My mom was surprised. She was confused for the most part, and it took, I feel like, a little bit for her to process, because I mean, not knowing your son's gay and then just randomly, I'm gay, you know what I mean? Yeah. But no, she's been very supportive and understanding about it, and I can pretty much tell her anything, so that's important to me.
That's really cool. And, you know, I feel like there is so much power in that as well. Like, I think, of course, this is not to say to like rush anyone or to tell anyone here that's listening to go ahead and do it. But, you know, sometimes it's the anticipation that's the hardest part. Sometimes the reality of like just going out there and doing it, you realize at the end of the day, my mom's going to love me through it. And there are definitely stories of, you know, maybe parents who just can't accept it for a while and they need a little bit longer. Say if your mom was like, I can't accept this. Your mom and dad family was like, nope, I can't do it. I just can't accept it. Would you still kind of sit here with me today and say, no, I'm glad I said what I had to say?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like I'm not as close with my family as I want to be. Like, even though I can like talk to my mom and stuff, I don't feel as close to them as I would want to. So like, I feel like their opinions wouldn't matter as much to me, because I mean, I'm doing it for me, and like, it's with no intent to hurt anybody else or upset anybody else. It's just for my benefit, you know? I'm not going to suppress myself even if it's just my mom and dad. Like, I'm not going to suppress myself for that. So
I love it. I love it, Preston. Now tell me a little bit about like the role that shrooms had on this whole process for you. Walk me through this from the beginning. So where and how you were first introduced to it, what kind of attracted you or appealed you to this world of psychedelics?
So it was like the end, well, not the end of quarantine, but beginning of 2021. I was already smoking weed whenever I think I started whenever I was 16, and I wasn't on any medication for my anxiety or anything, and I feel like weed gave me this illusion that it was like, it healed me, I guess, from like the trauma and the anxiety that I had like growing up, and it was a weird feeling, like smoking completely depleted all like the OCD rituals that I had, like before I sat on the toilet I'd have to wipe it off with a Clorox wipe or something because I was scared I was going to get contaminated by sitting on a dirty seat, or like being in a dirty house. I grew up with not a lot of money, and most of my family didn't have a lot of money either, and certain things would gross me out. So like, say if I didn't feel comfortable in somebody's house because it was dirty, if they made food, I would purposely waste the food so I didn't have to eat it because I was scared I was going to get sick. Stuff like that. I started smoking weed and that stuff completely stopped. I wasn't afraid to eat food. I wasn't afraid to sit on a dirty toilet or like not wash my hands a billion times.
Was this like prescribed for you, or was it just something you took recreationally and then realized, wow, this is helpful?
Yeah, recreationally. I started it because I kind of wanted to just like follow in my friends' footsteps and not seem like, or not feel like I was missing out on something. I wanted to understand like what people saw in weed. Like at first I grew up completely straight edge, and I was like, no weed, no cigarettes, no alcohol, whatever. And then once I tried weed, I was like, shit, I don't know. Like something about it definitely opened my mind up a little bit more, because where I've lived, like I said, like people were racist, homophobic, and I kind of found myself like following in those footsteps just because I felt like I needed to fit in, and I felt like I needed people to relate to, you know what I mean? Even if they weren't the greatest people, that was what I was surrounded by. And a lot of bullying, a lot of stuff like that. So I just felt like I had to kind of open my mind up a little bit, and weed helped me do that. It helped me realize that it really didn't cost anything to be kind to people.
So you decide from weed, the next thing you took was shrooms?
Oh yeah. Because of the like original fear of weed that I had, like not wanting to do it because I was scared of what being high felt like. Once I found out what being high felt like, I felt like I had this sort of space to not be as afraid of drugs. Weed and shrooms have been the only drugs I've taken. Did
you do any reading before getting into psychedelics, into shrooms, knowing that they're going to have completely different effects? Weed is, you're still very much in your senses and aware of everything with weed. Did you do any reading, or did you just sort of have that first experience? I
can remember correctly, I think I watched a documentary. It might have been on Netflix, but it was like all these celebrities talking about their trips and their experiences with their trips, and I think it was just called Take a Trip or something. It was like things not to do on psychedelics, and some people explain their stories, and that was really all the research I did. I saw it and I was like, okay, I mean, I think I could handle it for the most part. Which turned out not to be so true. I think the one thing that I remember them talking about was not to look at yourself in a mirror while you're tripping, because that can cause, I guess, like some kind of ego death or whatever.
Kind of trip. Right.
Some kind of bad effect to the trip. And I didn't listen to that, unfortunately.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. And I feel like that might have triggered something.
So would you say it was that the very first time that you took shrooms when all hell broke loose for you, or all hell broke loose on that very first trip?
Yeah, all hell broke loose on that very first trip. I had this friend named Travis that I met in high school, and I dropped out of high school in 10th grade, and I hadn't talked to Travis or seen Travis since freshman year, and this was whenever I was supposed to be, I think, a junior, and I think he reached out to me and asked if we could hang out, and I think that's what opened my mind up to taking shrooms, just hearing his story as well. He knew somebody we could get them from, and we took them together. I think I ate mine on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, because the smell was disgusting, and I could not bear to take it by itself. It was
Interesting.
a foul smell, really bad.
How do people you typically take it? Like, what's the typical way of taking it?
I've heard people, they
Just
put it into like tea, or eat it, or cook it into things, spaghetti, pizza, stuff like that. But
And is it usually like a healthy dose or not a healthy dose? A typical dose would be like one mushroom or like a bunch?
I don't know like how much psilocybin is in one singular mushroom, so I'm not like completely sure about that, but I know that the amount I took was definitely not a safe amount to be taking. Well, at least for the first trip. You know what I mean?
Trip. Okay.
Yeah.
So you put it on a PB&J sandwich.
Yep.
And you had the whole thing. And did your friend at any point warn you, like, hey, look, it's your first time, maybe just slow it down, have a little bit less? Or was he like, nah, go for it, everything's going to be fine?
I feel like he was also slightly inexperienced with the shrooms. He's taken them before. He's done, I think he's told me acid was the first drug that he took. And that, I don't remember how that story went for him, but I knew that I felt safe enough around him because he wasn't an ignorant person. He's never been ignorant. He's never been closed-minded or anything. So I felt like, okay, this is a person that I would feel safe possibly doing them with for the first time. And I think we both took about the same amount. He took the stems of the mushrooms and I took the caps. And I guess the caps are more potent than the stems, so I got the shit end of the stick on that part.
What do you recall? How long did it take before it kind of hit you guys, and what happened thereafter?
I remember we took them, and then it was like beginning of January, so it was like freezing cold out. We went for this like short little walk around where I was living at the time, and we were just like looking up at the trees, waiting to see if like the trees would warp or move or whatever. And we noticed that they were warping and moving, and it wasn't scary to me at all. I remember I felt very like giddy, giggly, kind of like excited, motivated. So like the beginning of the trip was not bad. We ended up walking back to my house, and the heater was on, and the moment I felt the trip like fully sit in was when I would transition from being outside in the cold, walking into the warmth. It was the craziest feeling. I don't know. It felt like I kind of just like walked through Jello or something. It was nuts. And then I remember we were laughing about something. I was like looking on my phone screen, like at my front camera, like to see if anything looked different. And my face like looked beet red. My eyes were super dilated, and it kind of freaked me out. So I like shied away from looking at myself for half of the beginning of the trip. And then I think we couldn't decide what we wanted to do, like while we were on the shrooms, and we got in this loop of like, what do we do? And then it turned into this like slight panic of like, holy shit, we're like, the best way to put it was we were like trapped in a mental loop. Like we couldn't get out of like not knowing what we were going to do. So we basically kind of just sat there, and I think we tried to put on a movie. And the thing that freaked me out, like with the hallucinations, was whatever movie we were watching, I forgot what it was, the actors' faces in the movies started to resemble like my family members, and they started, I don't know, it was a freaky experience. Like the actors looked nothing like they actually do. It was like they were morphing into my family members, and I couldn't comprehend that because I thought shrooms would be like, oh, I'm seeing things kind of wiggle and move and wave, but it was like a full like perspective visual change. Like nothing looked right, would be the best way to put it. Nothing looked right.
Were you kind of already, you mentioned that you were in that negative, like that loop of what do we do? So do you feel like that kind of mindset transitioned into like when you were watching that movie, you kind of stayed in that negative kind of mind, like that zone, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So instead of seeing those actors and seeing your family members' faces on these actors, instead of feeling like, wow, that's really cool, that's so fascinating, you're already in this negative zone. So you're like, that's freaking me out, that's not okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It was weird because I think the thing that set the negative tone, like with the actors morphing into my family members, was I think it might have been family members that caused me some kind of trauma. I think it was my brain trying to show me, like, trying to weed out things, weed out memories subconsciously. And I got stuck in this, like, feeling. I was diagnosed with CPTSD, it's complex PTSD, and just from, like, past childhood trauma, and it, like, kind of built its way up into adulthood, and, like, the way I react and respond to things, I feel like it was partially because of the trauma. And I don't know, I feel like the trip was definitely trying to show me something about myself, or show me something I was forgetting, like suppressed memories. I don't know.
Right. Things started resurfacing at that point.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, your friend is equally as high, so he's not equipped or in the state of mind to, talk you through it. So you're kind of just starting to work yourself up to a really, really, really strong negative kind of trip.
Yeah. I think we were both definitely in the same we were in the same headspace for sure, with the mind, or the time loop feeling. But there was this point in time where I started getting, like, hyper aware of my breathing. Like, it was the only thing I could hear over the movie or whatever music we were listening to or whatever we were doing. Like, all I could focus on was, like, how loud my breathing was. And I think the hyper awareness of my breathing made me freak out, because I was like, I can't stop focusing on my breathing. Like, I was like, how we breathe automatically, I was manually breathing, and I couldn't stop. I just could not stop. I felt like I had no control over the attention I had to my breath. I had no control over just regular things that our body does automatically. It was weird. It was scary. Everything felt like it was going so slow but so fast. Like, it was the weirdest headspace to be in. I remember standing up to get a bottle of water to see if I could, like, try and ground myself, just get something to drink, like, hydrate myself. And as soon as I stood up, I turned around to, I think, ask Travis if he wanted a bottle of water, and I see myself sitting on the bed. Like, I stand up, turn around, and see myself still sitting on the edge of the bed, talking to Travis, and I was just like, I died. Like, I thought I died. It was the freakiest thing ever, and that is what led into the breathing thing. And I couldn't tell if I had an out-of-body experience, if I was hallucinating, if I died, or if I was a ghost. I don't know. Like, that was my thought process at the time. I was very paranoid, very confused as to, like, how this is even happening. Like, I've never experienced something like that in my life. I remember, like, walking around. I had my, like, hands over my head trying to, like, control my breathing. And I was just, like, walking around my kitchen in circles, waiting and waiting and waiting until I could, like, process whatever I saw.
Did you have the ability at that point to converse with yourself, to tell yourself, look, I'm tripping, I know I've just taken this is supposed to happen?
I feel like this was before I started going to therapy, like, and actually partaking in therapy. So I didn't really have many grounding methods except for, like, okay, breathe in, breathe out. And I think I was just, like, at that point, hyperventilating, and there was, like, no control over how I was, like, perceiving myself in reality at that point. It was kind of just, like, the thought that I had was, I'm going to be stuck like this. Like, I felt like I was going to be feeling that fear forever. Like, even though that was an irrational thought, that thought carried on for 6 months after the fact. Like, it was the worst thought to have. Like, I'm stuck.
6 months.
Yep.
And was it constant for 6 months?
Yeah. So, like, what helped me bring myself out of the trip, I ate a bowl of cereal, but I ate it dry. And it was weird because it didn't taste like, I think it was like Honey Nut Cheerios or something. It didn't taste like Honey Nut Cheerios. It tasted like rocks. Like, I couldn't perceive reality at all. Like, the taste of things, the smell of things, like, how things sounded, everything was just distorted, like, all my senses. And the taste of the Cheerios was so nasty that I threw all of it up. I think I, like, tricked myself into believing that if I threw up the shrooms with everything else, that it would stop, or it would slow down. And then once I did that, I kind of just felt like I was high at that point, and it was, like, less of a, oh my god, I'm terrified kind of thing, you know what I mean? But later that night, after the whole incident, I remember me and Travis were just bawling our eyes out. Like, we didn't understand what was going on. I feel like it really toyed with our emotions, and that's when I think we both decided to stop smoking weed, because any type of high was probably going to end up freaking us out.
Was Travis also in this for 6 months, or did he get out of it like at a normal, however long it usually takes? He would, I don't know, 4 hours, 3 hours, something like that?
I think like 4 to 6 is like the normal trip.
Right.
But like the amount of shrooms that I took, I feel like, I don't know if that changes the length of like the trip or anything, but the amount of shrooms that I took was a pretty, like what they call heroic dose. I feel like if I took maybe a lesser dose, I would have got out of it quicker. And he took the stems, so I don't know if our trips were like entirely different or not, but I know that he struggled with like a visual trail. Like if you move your eyes, it's like a type of blur. Like your vision's kind of blurred. Along with like that visual, there's this thing called visual snow as well. It's like where your eyes constantly have like these, what they call
White
floaters. Like these little, I don't know if you've ever seen like little worm things in your vision if you look up at the sun.
Yeah.
But we both had those for a very long time. Like it was very prevalent, and it was to the point where it was like almost irritating. Like I couldn't, no matter how much amount of light I was in, it was too much for my eyes. We stayed inside for the majority of that 6 months. We tried to go out and like go on car rides or do whatever to ground us, but we were both pretty taken aback by that whole situation. And I feel like it's kind of like affected us both in the long run. I feel like we still deal with the anxiety left over from that, because it was a pretty traumatizing thing for both of us. The best way to put it, everything felt off for those 6 months. Like nothing was really enjoyable. Things were very overstimulating. It just felt like my senses were shot. And I know that he can relate to that as well.
And in those 6 months, were you sort of like in and out of it? So every once in a while, like you would kind of function normally, but then you would have like something that would trigger, and then you would get really, really paranoid? Or was it literally constant for 6 months?
I'd say it was definitely like gradual, but it persisted pretty much daily. So like after we did the shrooms, I ended up moving with my mom. So it was just me and my mom at the time in the one house that I took the shrooms in. We ended up having to move because of money issues and stuff. And we moved into this trailer court, and I've never lived in like a trailer court. Like it's kind of like beat down area, and I didn't feel like super comfortable. I remember my main concern was that there was a bullet hole in the window, and we checked the house out, but we couldn't really find any other place to live, so we kind of had to settle for that. There was like black mold and stuff in the corner. There was the floor was kind of sinking in, but we really had no choice but to kind of just accept that this is where we're at. And I feel like after having such a life-changing moment and then moving houses, especially into one that's not deemed to myself like safe or comfortable, it didn't feel like home. I feel like that triggered the panic disorder. I didn't feel like I had a place to express myself or a place to feel comfortable at that moment in time.
Did you at some point tell your mom about it? Like, I need help, and how did that go for you?
The night that I did the shrooms, I remember she called me and asked if me and Travis wanted food, and I was like tripping, and I didn't know how to tell her I was tripping, so I was like, yeah, I was like shaking. I probably sounded like I was tweaking out, and I asked her if she could bring home some food, and then when she got home, I told her that I did them, and I was terrified she was going to be pissed, because at that point I was like still slightly tripping, and I didn't want her to freak out and cause me to have another bad trip. But I told her I just needed a minute to chill out. Like if she's upset with me, just talk to me about it later, because I can't handle it right now. But in the process of moving and stuff, seeing that bullet hole in the window and like seeing how rackety the house we were moving into was, I told her like I don't feel good about moving in there. I felt like there was bad vibes. Our landlord told us that the last people that lived there found knives like under the carpet. There was like a girl that lived there that was doing witchcraft, and that freaked me the hell out. Like I was, I don't know. Just
last
hearing
thing you
that,
need to hear in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not like against witchcraft or anything. Like tarot cards, reading like crystals, all that stuff. Like I'm not really against any of that, but just like having knives under the carpet is not the best vibe. So I remember I had a second panic attack in the place that we were living before we moved, and I was like, I can't move, I don't want to move. And I remember I was so worked up that I was like throwing up and freaking out. Like there was no way I could convince my mom not to move out into that place, just because of the situation we were in at the time. So it was like there was no choice. Being there, it felt like an eternity being in that place. It was only, I think we lived there for about a year, but like the 6 months out of that year, I got like all my stuff situated. I started feeling like slightly more comfortable being in the house, like having my room and my music stuff set up and like everything I needed. It felt like I had more of a space. I remember one night I tried to smoke weed again, and it started to make my heart race. It never did that before I did the shrooms. Like I never had any anxiety with the weed beforehand, but it started to make my heart race. I feel like I was tripping again, and weed didn't do that to me. I feel like the shrooms traumatized me in a way that transmuted into like whatever other drugs I'm going to try are going to freak me out, and I can't do these again. And I had a panic attack that lasted 20 minutes. I was trying to get myself to fall asleep. I put on like calming frequencies and music and stuff on my TV to try to get me to chill out, and I eventually fell asleep, but then I woke up and my heart was still pounding out of my chest like 2 hours later in the middle of the night. And that was when the panic disorder started. I was not familiar with that feeling like at all. Like my heart, I could hear my heart pumping. I could feel it just running through my veins like this cold. I was in a cold sweat. This hot and cold feeling like going throughout my arms and my chest. Like I thought I was dying again. Like it felt like I did the shrooms again. I remember I woke my mom up and I was like, I don't know what is going on with me. My heart is racing. I can't get it to stop. I can't breathe. She sat there and like tried to talk me through it, and like my heart would not stop racing. It kept racing. Like endless. It just felt like endless panic. And the only thing that I could do was sleep. Like try and sleep for like an hour, take a nap, do something that would slow it down, and shut down that feeling, and it never stopped. Once I finally got it to subside a little bit, I was kind of freaked out. Like I didn't want that to happen again, and I think the fear of it happening to me again was what caused it to happen over and over and over again. It was like, I have a panic attack, okay, I'm good, but when is my next one? And then I tried to start controlling my breathing by just like in, out, slowly, regular like meditation kind of stuff. Focusing on my breathing, I feel like I was trying to calm myself down, but all it did was throw me into, they call it, it's a type of somatic OCD where your brain focuses on, like I was saying before, like the automatic things like blinking or swallowing or breathing. And for me, it was breathing. I could not stop focusing on my breath, and that would cause me to panic because there was no way to stop it, like whatsoever. And that gradually sort of went away, but it was always kind of lingering. I didn't know when I was going to start thinking about my breathing again, or whenever I was going to start obsessing. And it would happen at times where I was trying to be social, or at times where I was doing something that was important to me, like making my music or having a conversation.
You're looking for a distraction to stop you from focusing on the breathing, but anything that you try to focus your mind on other than your breathing brings you back to your breathing. So it's just this kind of like cycle, back and endless forth. God, it's just like, it sounds like a mental jail. Yes, that's the best way to put it. I didn't feel like I had any type of freedom. Like I felt like there was no way in hell that I was going to be able to enjoy my life again if I'm going to be stuck focusing on my breathing. I can't tune into anything else if, like something that's supposed to be automatic and something that brings you life, breathing, you know what I mean? Like, I was afraid. It led into me having insomnia for the first 2 months of that 6 whole months, where I would wake up focused on my breathing immediately. Like, I'd wake up soaked in sweat. I'd immediately be panicking. Like, I feel like it had this weird effect on my dreams. Like, I'd have, the best way to put it was like, imagine you fell asleep for like an hour, but the dream that you just had felt like 3 hours or 4 hours long. It was the weirdest experience. I couldn't even put it into words. It was like,
I just couldn't tell what was real. Like, I couldn't tell the difference between my reality and whatever I was dreaming about. It just felt like I was constantly in this state of deja vu, or like fight or flight, constantly. Like, those are the best two words to put to that feeling for me.
So were you also getting like visual and auditory like hallucinations at this time?
So like visual wise, it would be, so I remember we had a hallway that led to my room, and it had these wood planks painted over with white, like down the middle, and you could see like the lines between the planks kind of like wiggle, and the floor was kind of like this weird kind of wooden pattern, and that would move as well. I couldn't focus my attention on one thing or the other. Like I said, I could not go outside. The sun was too bright. Trees were still wiggling. The grass was too green for my eyes to comprehend. It was like all my human senses were just like stripped down to the nerve, is the best way to put it.
Did you at any point think, or did your mom think, or did Travis think to take you to a doctor during that time? Or
there would be times where I'd wake up panicking with my heart racing, and it would just be so fast that like there was no way to convince me that I was not having a heart attack at all. It caused me chest pains, chest tightness. Like, I'd wake my mom up in the middle of the night before she had to go to work or something and be like, I need to go to the ER, I'm having a heart attack, something is like severely wrong, like this keeps happening and I can't get it to stop. Will you take me to the hospital? Most of the time, people thought I was over-exaggerating it or being dramatic, and like, not to say my mom wasn't supportive, because she helped me a lot through most of my mental struggles and stuff, which I appreciate. But this was a feeling that like nobody around me really understood. It was such a weird thing to try to explain to people. Like, I tried to talk to people about it, and they'd ask me like, what do you mean you don't feel real? Like, what does that even mean? And it's like, that's the best way to put it. Like, I don't feel real. Like, I don't feel like I'm in my body. I don't feel like I'm safe. Like, I was stuck in this mental prison.
I remember reading a couple of posts some time ago, some similar experience where someone had taken some hallucinogen and tripped really hard on it. They said that they took antipsychotic meds. They went to the doctors and were prescribed antipsychotic meds and found that was not actually helpful. If anything, it kind of did worse for them. But then when they got into anti-anxiety meds, they found that to be really helpful. Have you ever tested or tried any kind of medication for this?
At first, whenever I was freaking out, the first time I finally was able to convince my mom to like get me to the hospital and that I was not just over-exaggerating or being dramatic, we went there. I talked to some of the people at the ER. They checked my heart rate. They checked, like, they did an EKG, I believe. They did a brain scan. They did everything, and they told me that there was nothing physically wrong with me and that I should go to a psychiatrist. So I did that. She was, my old psychiatrist was the one who let me know that, hey, you do have OCD. You have signs of, like, autism or Asperger's. You have persistent depression, or PDD, persistent depressive disorder. It was just like a wide array of things that, like, okay, I kind of figured like something was up mentally, but I didn't know it was going to be this whole boatload of things like thrown onto me like that. But she prescribed me with an antipsychotic because she thought that maybe that would slow down the existential thoughts and the obsessions with my breathing and stuff. And I remember I started to take that. I took it maybe for 2 days, and on the second day it made me pretty irritable. It made me like slightly violent, which was terrifying because I am in no way ever a violent person or confrontational or anything like that. I'm just too anxious and couldn't do that. But so I did that, and I was like, okay, I have to stop this because I already feel out of control and I don't need something else to add to that, you know what I mean? So I stopped that, and for about a year I was like, no meds. I'm not taking medicine. I'm going to try vitamins. I'm going to stay hydrated. I'm going to eat. I'm going to exercise. Do whatever I can to, like I was saying earlier, like overstimulate my senses or whatever. Like, that was the main thing that helped. And then leading out of that, it was mostly just kind of this leftover sense of impending doom once I got over the breathing and the existential thinking. I was at this like standstill where it was like, okay, I'm good now, but will this feeling, come back? Will it hit me even harder? Will it just reappear like I was constantly on edge that it was going to come back and that I was going to be stuck like that again. Haven't done any psychedelics since then. I have started to smoke weed again, which I'm fine with. I don't panic. I'm on Zoloft, 100 milligrams right now, which is an antidepressant, but also helps with anxiety and OCD, I believe. And it's definitely helped, like, a ton. After the whole shroom experience, I've experimented with weed a couple times, and it would make me just the same amount of anxious, and I couldn't do it. But then I slowly, like, kind of built a tolerance and taught myself how to ground myself whenever I got too high or whenever I felt anxious, even whenever I was sober. So, like, I'm able to use those coping mechanisms and rational thinking to kind of just bring me back down and realize, like, okay, you're high. You smoked weed, you're not dying, nothing's going on. Yeah. And then adding the Zoloft to that, I have no problem with weed, like, whatsoever anymore.
How did you sort of get by without working or basically daily tasks and responsibilities?
I honestly just kind of had to keep getting it through to my parents and my friends and my grandparents that, like, I'm seriously struggling mentally and I can't work right now. I need your guys' support. And, like, the way that they supported me was letting me live with them, letting me, like, leech off of them, unfortunately. Like, I hate to have other people spend money on me or have me be their main priority, but, like, I really needed that time to do nothing, to heal, to try and research and try and rest as much as I could to get that feeling to go, because if I overworked myself, if I pushed myself too hard, I don't know if I would be mentally still here.
You mentioned research, so what was some of the things that you read about at the time? Did you look for communities? Were you looking for just information, people who've been through something? Were you very keenly aware at that point that this was a direct result of the shrooms? And so were you typing that when you were searching about it?
Yeah, I think this was the reason that I downloaded Reddit in the first place, because I know that they have, like, so many niche subreddits and stuff for, like, mental health. Anything you're looking for, it's on there. So, like, I went on the anxiety subreddit and I typed out, I did shrooms so-and-so months ago, whatever, and I still feel like I'm tripping. What is wrong with me? Like, and then a few people reached out to me and told me that it sounded like I was dealing with what is called derealization, depersonalization disorder, or just DPDR. And that helped me dig my way through what I thought was me dying or me going crazy and turn it into something that people experience. What I learned is that it's not anything other than your brain trying to protect itself from traumatic situations. And then when I found that out, it kind of calmed me to know that, like, I'm not dying. There's nothing actually wrong with my brain or my body. Like, it's anxiety. It's fueled by thinking about it. If you're thinking about it, thinking I don't feel real, if you're telling people I don't feel real, you're not going to be able to get yourself back in your body and your mind.
Is this a fully, properly diagnosed condition, DPDR?
I know that it could be a symptom of anxiety, but I'm not sure if it has its own diagnosis. But yeah, it goes hand in hand with OCD, anxiety, BPD, bipolar, anything that can cause you to feel immense stress or feel like isolated, or I don't know. If you don't feel safe, if you've had traumatic experiences, your brain is most likely going to have you, like, dissociate from that, whatever's stressing you out. And that's basically what it was for me. I think living in the place that I was living in at the time and dealing with the processing of, like, what the hell did the shrooms do to me? Am I anxious? Am I going crazy? What is going on? I felt like I had to juggle all the possibilities and, like, drop everyone that wasn't the right answer. And the answer to me was, it was definitely anxiety and OCD.
Interesting. So, like, do you feel like you would have had this DPDR regardless of the shrooms? Like, that it was bound to sort of come back to you at some point because of your childhood trauma, and then you have a mixing with your anxiety and OCD that was already existing in you? Or do you feel like that was only triggered because of the shrooms?
I know that both sides of my family, my mom and my dad, there are a variation of, like, mental illnesses and stuff, and some are more extreme than the other. Like, on my dad's side, I believe that there's, like, addictive personality. On my mom's side, OCD. And then I think depression comes from kind of both of my parents. So like most of the stuff I've experienced on top of already generational trauma, just having that in my blood already, and then being traumatized as a child, like in different ways, just mental, sexual, emotional, like just all over the place. That was like my childhood. No matter if I did the shrooms or not, I feel like those things kind of would have definitely been brought up either way. But I feel like the shrooms helped me get it over with quicker.
All of those like repressed memories, instead of it slowly coming to you at a point where maybe your mind is ready to accept it, it's just like all come crashing at once, which is not ideal. But in a sense, the floodgates just being open right in that moment gives you awareness of what you need to know, but at the same time, maybe not being fully ready for it.
Yeah, I was definitely not prepared to deal with that all at once. It definitely opened me up to existential thinking, like, for example, constantly questioning, like, how am I alive right now? Like, how is my heart beating? How am I conscious? How am I conscious, like, at all? Like, how does my brain produce thoughts? How does a muscle in my skull like help me walk and move my fingers individually? Like stuff like that would always be on my mind. I was so hyper focused on things that did not matter, like that don't have answers. Like the brain is an insane thing, and I feel like that was my trigger, was thinking about like, how the hell has my brain not shut down from this stress, or how have I not actually died from this amount of stress, because this is an irreparable amount of stress.
Can you walk me through how did it all kind of like come to an end for you? That final 6th month where you started to wean off of it. How did that happen for you?
Definitely moving out of that trailer I was living in at the time. Me and my mom have like talk all the time. We're always talking to each other. But I felt like I wasn't getting the social needs I needed from just living with just my mom. So like moving in with my buddy Travis and his ex helped me be more social, helped me find things that were like constantly keeping me distracted and people to be around and things. Being at that trailer, I was isolated most of the time. I didn't have much to do except for think and panic and freak out. But yeah, living with Travis, there was a lot of people over there all the time. It could have been, it was kind of overwhelming, but I feel like that's what kind of grounded me and took me out of that, was like being overwhelmed by outside senses and not being overwhelmed by the fear that I'm gonna die or something's wrong with my brain. It just like, it gave me that breathing room again. And I find myself like to this day still coping in that way. Like I feel like I'm almost completely over the derealization. Like I feel pretty attuned to myself and the things around me again. But I've learned that, I don't know if this is the best way to cope, but kind of just purposefully overstimulating yourself. Like daily I listen to tons of music. Like I dig and dig through Spotify to just find like new music or anything that I haven't heard before. I will click on it and listen to it, and any art that I'm not familiar with, I'll dig into that too. Like just kind of overloading your senses with things that like inspire you or motivate you, or even just going for a walk with headphones on, drinking water, eating something. Like just keep kind of trying to get that stimulation, that dopamine. Yeah.
What a story. I mean, like that's crazy to me, because you really, really do see on the internet very split down the middle experiences on shrooms. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's a great experience. You know, it really opens up your mind to the world and, you know, to life beyond us. But then you also do hear the other side. So, you know, after what you've experienced, what kind of message or insight can you share with our listeners today? Anyone that might be thinking or wanting to do this, what do you have to say to them today?
I'd say, if you have any like predisposition to schizophrenia, BPD, any anxiety disorders like whatsoever, I'd say hold back. For the I'm not a professional in any way about like psychedelics, except for like what I know about my experience and how to avoid what happened to me. So I'd say do your research. Definitely don't look into mirrors. Don't go on social media while you're tripping. Do something that's like that keeps you in tune with what is actually around you. Don't do it around people that you don't feel safe with. Definitely, if you're doing it for the first time, do not do it alone. And just make sure you feel comfortable with it. If you feel any type of way about it, like if, say you go and buy shrooms or something, if you get like a gut-wrenching feeling that you don't feel safe doing this, if you feel anxious doing it, that's the feeling you're gonna have the whole trip. Unless you know how to cope and calm yourself down, I'd say just be cautious. That's about it, really. And just take care of yourself. Spend time with people that you feel you can be open with. Because that's a huge factor.
Yeah, and I'd probably also add to that as well. Really stick to very, very small doses. You can always have one small little piece extra later on if you're not feeling it, rather than it being the other way around where you've just taken too much and now you just, have to deal with it, right? Last question. Is there anything that someone or anyone can do if they have taken it and they're having a bad trip? Or they're not having a good time? Is there anything that someone can do in that very moment to kind of bring it down a notch?
I'd say definitely. Well, for me, it was kind of difficult to get myself to think rationally. So my best advice would be to, this is something that I do sober if I'm feeling anxious or stressed out. But my therapist taught me, it's called bilateral stimulation. You put your hands like this, tap back and forth, and just like keep your hands steady, and I think it focuses on the vagus nerve. It's in your brain, and it controls like a lot of anxious feelings, any tension, anything you're feeling that relates to stress in your body. This, or even tapping your fingers like this. Like if you don't want to be, if you're in public and panicking, you don't want to be like this, freaking out. But you could do this, tap on your legs, and anything. Going for a walk, playing an instrument, like using both sides of your brain and your body definitely creates that balance for sure.
Wow, Preston, thank you so much for sharing your story and being vulnerable on air with us. That couldn't have been easy to share as well. So thanks for being here.
I appreciate you for having me. I hope that this helps people.
If you enjoyed the episode and would like to help support the show, please follow and subscribe. You can rate and review your feedback on any of our platforms listed in the description. I'd like to recognize our guests who are vulnerable and open to share their life experiences with us. Thank you for showing us we're human. Also, a thank you to our team who worked so hard behind the scenes to make it happen.
Lucas Thierry, Stefan Menzel.
The show would be nothing without you. I'm Jenica, host and writer of the show, and you're listening to Multispective.